sweet Jesus, forgive me. I literally spent 3 years hating my debut novel. Like, it made me sick to look at it, and it's still hard to keep from cringing. I cringe about every 3 words. But just because from, 12 to 18, I changed a lot, as you can imagine, and writing several more books. I learned so much more. And had I been able to apply that knowledge to my first book before I published it, bruh, we would have ended up, we would be in a totally different plane of existence right now.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Her Reading Life podcast. I am absolutely thrilled that you are here. And if this is your first time, hi, my name is Shida Rodriguez. I'm here to help you find life-changing books and write life-changing stories. Now, I know if you've been around the writing world for at least, let's just say 3 to 6 months, okay? That's all it takes for you to go down the rabbit trail of where you should publish. Should I be traditionally published? Should I do self-publishing? Should I do hybrid publishing? I've even gone down that rabbit trail. And if you have ever had any of those doubts, believe me, I am going to set those fears at rest. Or actually, not me, a friend of mine, an amazing friend of mine is actually going to set your fears at rest because she's been around the block and she knows what it's like to be wrestling with traditional publishing and self-publishing and even hybrid publishing, which, by the way, if you don't know what that is, don't worry. We are going to explain just what that is. So in today's episode, we are going to show you what is the route for you. And we're going to give you some signs and some ideas for how to go about publishing and how to be able to actually enjoy the process. Because guess what? This process is not supposed to be hard. You're supposed to be able to enjoy it. And that is our goal for today's episode. If you're enjoying this so far, definitely click the subscribe button below and ring the notification bell so you never miss a single episode. And if you've been enjoying Her Reading Life podcast for some time, listening to it on Spotify, definitely consider giving us a review because that helps us so much. We're able to reach more guests and be able to reach more listeners through your reviews. It really helps us so much, and we're able to impact and bless other people through this podcast. And last but not least, because I definitely want to let you know, I've actually released my first short story in the Novelists in November anthology, which is now available on Amazon on Kindle and paperback. You can get it wherever you find your books, but specifically on Amazon, I think it's available right now. So if you love cozy vibes and like coffee shops and everything pumpkin spice latte and autumn aesthetic, then you will absolutely love this collection. Definitely check it out if that is something that you would be interested in. So without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. I'm so excited for you to meet Grace, and a couple things about her before we jump in. She is an amazing friend of mine. She's also a Christian indie authoress with a passion for crafting authentic and edifying stories that inspire readers and glorify God. Since 2019, she's actually released several novels, short stories, and a devotional. She's also a marketer and editor and loves helping young readers and writers. And I'm so excited for her to be able to share her story and her insights with you guys. So without further ado, let's jump in. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Her Reading Life podcast. I am so thrilled for you to listen to today's episode because today I've actually had a often requested question of how do you self-publish? And I honestly I've always wondered the same thing myself because I haven't self-published. So I would always think, well, I can't really be the authority on that because I've never done it myself. But I was so lucky and so blessed to be able to have an amazing friend who has actually worked in this. And this is like one of her big passions. So I was like, wow, thank you, Jesus. And this amazing friend is Grace Johnson. Grace, welcome. I'm so excited you were able to come on the podcast.
I am so excited too. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just so thrilled that we were finally able to do this. I feel like I've had this in the back of my mind for months and I've finally gotten around to doing it.
Yeah, better late than never, right?
Totally. Exactly.
So I would love to hear what's your story? What inspired you to start writing and what made you kind of like fall in love with self-publishing in particular? I think I've heard your story before, but I would love for our listeners to hear it.
Well, it's actually a long story, so I'll try and condense it as much as I can. But the funny thing about me falling in love with writing is it kind of happened really unexpectedly. Growing up, I absolutely hated writing, so much so I would ask for my mother, because I was homeschooled. I would ask, can I just tell you? Can I give this assignment orally? Do I have to write it down? But somewhere along the way, I just I couldn't not write. I had always loved stories. I've loved reading since, I was 4 or 5, read voraciously. Um, and then one day I had picked up this book. It was actually The Golden Braid by Melanie Dickerson. And something about it just sparked to like all these story ideas and just this deep desire to like, oh man, I want to write my own stories. I loved this so much. Like, why can't I do the same thing? And it took me a little bit to get to the point, like to reconcile the fact that I would actually have to physically write. Um, so after a while, I was finally like, okay, look, I'm going to have to write these things down. I had originally wanted to wait till I was like 16 because I was like, okay, at 16, I'll be older and more mature and I can do that. So I was 10 at the time. But I couldn't wait. So I picked up a pencil and an old collegiate notebook and I just started scribbling down stories. And somehow it worked. I really did fall in love with it. And I believe it was something that God led me to because I never would have dreamed of being a writer. I wanted to be a ballerina, a fashion designer, an artist, a cowgirl. I wanted to be all kinds of things, not a writer. Writer was not on that list. But as time went on and I read more, I just came up with more story ideas, a wider variety. By the time I was 12, I had written 2 novels, and I was ready to pursue publishing. And when I say I had no idea what I was doing, you better believe I had no idea what I was doing. So the way I got into self-publishing was kind of by accident because I originally was like, I want to be traditionally published because that was the only thing I knew of. I knew, from looking at copyright pages, I've got to contact one of these people and figure out how they can print my book. And so I tried looking for publishers that would accept like unsolicited submissions, and that was like impossible. But I did manage to find one publisher, and I sent in a query, and I heard back, and they requested my proposal. And that was not a good idea. My query letter was good enough, at least for a 12-year-old, but my proposal was garbage. So I never heard back for good reason. And so I spent like 3 months like praying about it and hoping that I would hear back from this publisher and just trying to figure out what to do next. And the Lord was like, self-publishing. My aunt actually mentioned it, and I don't even know how she knew about it. She may have had a friend or a relative that self-published. And so she just said, hey, you could totally try this. I looked into it. Boom. I was like, this is it. This is it for me. And at the time, it definitely was. And so we prayed about it, me and my mother, and, within 2 days, I was like, I'm throwing my book up here. Let's do this. Let's get her done.
I love that. Yeah, and that's so funny how, it's so funny how often we kind of stumble on writing. I don't know that people most of the time are like, oh, I want to write the bestseller, the American bestseller, the new American novel. Most of us just kind of stumble onto it and we're like, oh, okay, I want to write a book. This looks fun. And then we can't stop.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't really realize what you're getting into when you first start out with that notebook and pencil.
Yeah, that's incredible. And honestly, it's so crazy because you were plunged into publishing pretty early. I mean, 12?
Yeah, it was crazy. And being 12, 13, like I had done zero research, knew absolutely nothing. Like, I did not know that I needed an agent. I didn't know how to do cover design. I didn't know how to market. I didn't know I needed a platform. So it was kind of a mess. But it was a beautiful mess in a really weird way because I learned a lot of really good lessons from doing that.
Yeah, often sometimes like in life, the best way is to just get knocked up and learn it that way.
Yeah, experience is the best teacher.
Quite so. Definitely. Yeah, so for those of our listeners who don't know, let's make it super, super clear and easy. What is self-publishing and what is traditional publishing and how do they differ? Because again, you were talking about a little bit about the traditional publishing at the beginning of your story where you were like, oh, if I want to publish a book, which is what everybody thinks of, I'm going to go and get it published with a publisher. Even if we don't know what goes between the drafting the story to publishing it, we're like somewhere in between. You contact a publisher and nebulously somehow it works out. We do something and it becomes a book in Target and Amazon and all that good stuff. But I would love to get a clearer view for our listeners. What is traditional publishing? What is self-publishing and how do they differ?
That's really good. And yeah, I was definitely in that place where I was like, somehow I take this book and somehow it ends up
Exactly.
like most people really don't understand all that goes into it. And I think, with a Google search, you can probably figure it out. But some people, self included, just, never really make it that far. We're just like, no, we're just going to wing it. Don't wing it. Please don't. But anyway, so traditional publishing is basically you sign the contract and you hand over your book to the publisher. The publisher handles all of the technical stuff. They get the cover. They do handle the editing. They'll have editors there. But it's not as simple as you think because you have to start with an agent. And I did not know this for several years. Because again, like I had not really looked into it heavily. I just thought, hey, surely it's not that hard. All these books are getting published. It's hard. So you have to get an agent. And so you'll pitch your book to the agent, like through a query letter. And if they decide, hey, this book has promise, I'll represent you, then they are the ones that contact the publisher. And so, they have this whole network and all of this. And so they'll contact the publisher and pitch your book to them until they find the one that's right for your book and who's really genuinely interested. And then you go through that whole process of they get the proposal and then they get the manuscript and, it goes through acquisitions and then the editors pitch it and all that fun stuff. But really the part that the author experiences the most and the main difference between traditional publishing and self-publishing is the fact that you sign over a contract and the publisher has basically total creative control over the book. Obviously, you're going to have some feedback and, I'm sure each publishing company is different, but they're the boss. They own your book. They paid you for the rights. And so you really don't have the kind of control that a lot of people want these days where they can decide if they want it to be a series or if they want to republish it because they wanted to change something. It can be a little bit difficult to get published because of, people trying to express their faith or political views. And not every publisher is going to be interested in, causing a political rift or whatever. You know how it is. So that's one pro for self-publishing, but I'll get to that later. So the other big thing with traditional publishing is the royalties. Royalties are about 10 to 15%. So the author literally makes pennies per book. So that can be a big turnoff for people who are trying to, get a lot of money and get a lot of control and kind of they're making the profit and they're putting in the most work in their book. You know what I mean? But at the same time, a publisher distributes your book everywhere and gives you a big advance check. That said, the advance is literally they're paying you those royalties ahead based on their sales projections. So it's not like you get your advance check and then you're also getting royalties. You have to wait until your book has paid back that advance. So it's a little bit of like, oh, that's a bit of a letdown.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the same time, you also have this big team behind you, and they're helping you market your book, and they're getting it distributed. Sorry about that. And you will probably end up selling a lot more copies, and so that will kind of make the difference in royalties there. And then self-publishing is basically the opposite. You do it all yourself. You pay out of pocket for cover design, editing, possibly formatting unless you figure out how to do it yourself. You're the one that's uploading that book to the platform and making sure that it gets distributed to wherever you want it distributed to. You're the one that's handling the marketing. You're the one that is completely in charge of everything, and that includes the creative process. So you have all of those freedoms, and you're also making a lot more money. Royalties are usually around 40 to 70%, depending on, if it's an ebook or if it's a paperback. And so you do make, $2, $3, $4 instead of 2, 3, 4 cents. So
Yeah.
that's good. But at the same time, it is a lot of work and it's a lot of upfront cost. So if you are broke or if you are a child like I was, it's not necessarily the most viable option, just because to really be successful at it, it takes a lot of effort. And that's what I didn't understand. It was entirely too easy to put my book out there that I didn't realize that there was a lot that has to go into it if I ever want to see profit or success or it getting into people's hands. So because you don't have that big team behind you that's getting it out there, you there are certain things that you're just going to have to do yourself, or you're just going to have to kind of cut your losses in a way. There is another option, though, for somebody that's like, I don't like self-publishing and I don't like traditional publishing. Maybe you don't want to do all of it yourself, but maybe you don't want to surrender all of your freedoms or whatever. There's hybrid publishing. And this is kind of it's a bit debated in the publishing industry of if it's a really good option. And so some people are going to be like, you don't do it. And some people are going to be like, yes, this is awesome. So really, it is entirely up to you. Like, use discernment, use wisdom. You make the decision that's right for you. But the thing about hybrid publishing is you pay somebody up front to do all the work. You make all the royalties, or some will split the royalties or whatever. You'll make more money, but you also have to put in more money, but you don't have to put in all the effort. You get the team, you get the community, you get, people helping you and people helping it get out there. But at the same time, again, if you broke, it is not for you. Some people will have to pay $1,000 for them to publish your book. And some people don't have $1,000. Some people have to buy deodorant and tomatoes. So, you know what I mean? And gas in this economy. But it does combine kind of the best of both worlds in a way. So for some people, it really does work. And before we move on, I'm going to put in a shameless self-plug here. If you don't want to spend the money and you don't want to surrender all of your creative freedoms, but you want the community and you want people who are going to handle all the stuff for you and really pour into you, into your book, I'm starting a small press.
That's so exciting.
And I won't take up too much time because we have not officially launched, so we're not public yet. I'm still going through a lot of legalities, and that is so much fun. So many forms to file. But like my goal and my mission is to be, I guess, the publisher that I wish I had when I was just starting out, and I am, 13 years old, and I can't afford to self-publish well, but I'm not going to get traditionally published as a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
I needed somebody that would come alongside me and help me, truly help me, and not just be there for, the bottom line, because I needed to help. So anyway, Sky's the Limit Press coming soon. That's really our goal, is just to be there for authors, you know, the young ones who are literally 13, the old ones who are ready to get out of the grind of self-publishing, or, you know, the whateverness of traditional publishing, you know, who are ready to just leave all of the crazy behind and just want something that is going to be stress-free, simple, and just genuinely focused on the author and helping them.
Yeah.
There's us.
That's so incredible and so exciting. I've been following you guys and I'm so excited. And the graphics, girl, those are gorgeous.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I can't wait. Ooh, that'll be so exciting. And right now I'm recording this in June, so whenever this comes out, which may be a couple months from now, I may actually be able to include the link in the show notes below so that you can apply if you're interested in this. But honestly, that was such a good rundown of self-publishing and traditional publishing and hybrid publishing too, because that's kind of a new form that's come out recently and that some authors, actually writers, don't even really know about, which I think I've been super interested in hybrid publishing just for a really long time, just because it just combines so much, especially since, like you, I was so picky about handing over my rights of my book and just feeling like, this is my baby. Why I don't know that I really trust you to handle it, and like that I'd have no control. Really, like if I want to say, hey, I don't think this is right for my book, I can't really say no. Or if they want to do a movie adaptation, I don't have complete say over it. I don't know. I'm like, I like my book.
Yeah, and I think a lot of writers are like that. And a lot of people, especially younger writers coming up now, are searching for something that is genuinely going to help them create the best book that they can and publish the book that they wrote, not the book that's been dictated by a group of editors and, you know, politics and trends and stuff. So yeah, I totally get that.
You know, reading can be honestly so hard. I have tried to keep up with my Bible reading for so many years, and frankly, it can get so difficult. Yes, my Bible is absolutely tattered. I like to live by the adage that a person whose Bible is falling apart is probably owned by someone who's not. I sometimes feel like I'm falling apart, but I would absolutely be falling apart in my Bible study plan if it weren't for my Dwell app. I absolutely love this app. It has truly changed and revolutionized the way that I do my Bible study. I probably would not be as far through the Bible as I am today if it weren't for this app. And I'm talking about the Dwell app. This app is amazing and I truly do recommend it to everybody that I can. It's amazing for tracking how much time you're actually spending in reading the Bible, but on top of that, they have so many new added features that when I started with this app, they did not have. It was already amazing. They have so many versions of the Bible and they make it very, very minimalist and very simple so that you're able to concentrate on actually reading the Bible. Because tell me how many times you've gotten distracted by like everything, all the bells and whistles in so many other Bible apps, which I love, but at the same time, this is amazing. You're able to customize what kinds of audio you listen to while you're listening to the Bible. It's really wonderful and amazing. They have, one of my favorites is piano and cello, and I literally just found this new one. They have now Christmas music that you can add in the background. It's totally customizable. You can also have sounds and sound effects in the background and change the voice and the speed at which you read. It is truly so good. It is one of my favorite apps ever, and I will not stop talking about it. They even have specific plans for kids, including the Jesus Storybook Bible and the Greatest Story Ever Told. I think that's what it's called. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on this. But they have these incredible audiobooks that you can get as part of your plan. I highly recommend it. I can't recommend it highly enough because genuinely I love this app and I recommend it to everyone. And guess what? You can actually get a free trial of this app and try it out for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Try it out for yourself by clicking the link in the description below. or heading over to bio.site/Shira Rodriguez. That's bio.site/Shira Rodriguez. I'll see you there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've heard that like self-publishing, it is a grind. It can be a grind if you're doing everything yourself. It can be exhausting or it can be, a bit expensive.
And obviously you can hire people, you can hire a marketer, you can hire all the different people or whatever, but at the same time, that's just more money. So sometimes you have more time than money, or you're just more willing to part with your time than you are with your money. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I do feel like honestly, because there's such an influx of books these days, traditionally published books and self-published books, there's so many books, and it is so hard for a writer to get ahead. It is outrageously difficult. And, it is a small chance that you blow up on TikTok. Most people aren't going to, especially if you have a book that isn't smut.
Yeah.
So really, it can just be so hard, no matter how much time or money or effort you're putting into it, to really see the success that you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And honestly, I feel like the interesting thing is that now in the internet age, because of social media, because of all these things, the playing field has kind of been leveled out so that whether you're traditionally published or self-published, marketing is something you're going to have to do, whether you like it or not. It's something that an author is going to have to do. Actually, I was talking with my dad. It's kind of off topic, but whatever. I was talking with my dad, and he was telling me that in the music industry, which he used to be part of like the music industry and things like that. In the past, people could focus on being musicians, but nowadays people have to be both musicians and content creators, and it's kind of the same in the book world too, in the writing world, where we're now having to be writers and marketers at the same time, and content creators and things like that, um, just to promote our books. And this is whether we're self-published, whether we're hybrid published, whether we're traditionally published. It's just the way things work right now. And so, having that as a toolkit, and just, I guess, thinking about what are going, if you're expecting a traditionally published, or like a traditional publishing deal to take care of all the marketing for you and all that, unfortunately today it's not what it used to be.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And more authors, regardless of being traditionally published or self-published, are having to do the brunt of the marketing themselves. So, either way you look at it, the only way you're not going to have to market is if you don't publish.
Yes, absolutely.
And so that's kind of a moot point, but that's why it's just, so important that you make the right choice, because either way you look at it, there are going to be obstacles, there are going to be challenges, there are going to be things that you have to really work at. So pick whichever one is going to be, I hate to say most profitable, but just like most generally beneficial for you.
Right.
Pick the route that God is leading you to,
Totally.
and that he's calling you to go into, and ultimately he'll carry you through. And if you're completely surrendered to him, he's going to use your book in so many different ways. It could reach one person, and it will still be the person that needed your book. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, totally. I love that. So what would you do if you could go back several years to mentor young Grace, who was just starting out? What would you tell her to do? What would be some of the first steps that you would recommend for listeners who want to explore this route of either self-publishing or hybrid publishing? And can you break it down into steps, especially with self-publishing?
Yes. All right. This is such a good question. Okay. So the obvious number one, for me, for anybody else, pray. Like I hate to say it, because for some people it may, oh, that's cheesy, or I've already done that. Whether it's a no-brainer or not, it is the most important step, because
Absolutely.
ultimately it's you and God and your book. people are going to come and go, opportunities are going to come and go, resources are going to come and go. When it gets down to the wire, it's just going to be you and God, and you better be working with him instead of working against him. So pray, ask him to lead you down the path that he wants you to go, and just to help you, and just stay like submitted to him, stay in prayer, stay like at peace, and don't get all caught up in, oh my gosh, what am I going to do about this? Or what about that? Or, I mean, don't even get crazy about marketing too, because you have to market. It can be such a struggle. So just pray and just let the Lord handle that. Because in a way, sometimes it's out of our control. We have so much control, like you said, in this internet age where anybody and everybody is online, and you can say and do anything and get it in front of anybody. But at the same time, ultimately, the Lord is in control of that, and he will put your book where it needs to be. So just make sure you're working with him. But yeah, pray about it. Ask him to give you peace, to guide you. And then, the next is to finish your book. Finish not just finish your book, like the one that you want to publish, but finish multiple books. Like, write a lot before you even get in your head to publish anything. And I kind of did this, but I also kind of didn't. So I wrote a lot. Like, I wrote just like a chapter here or a chapter there or half a book here. And then I wrote one short novel before I wrote my debut novel, Held Captive. And so on one hand, I had 2 years-ish of experience before I started pursuing publishing. But honestly, that was not enough. Being a 10-year-old, you can only write so good as a 10-year-old unless you're a literal prodigy. I was not. But yeah, like, I know a lot of people, their first project is the one that they want to publish so bad, the first one that they finish. And that is totally understandable. Been there. I totally get that. But the point is, you are going to grow, and you are going to improve, and you are going to change. And one day, you're going to look at that beloved book that was so perfect, and you're going to not want to look at it again. You are going to like, oh my Lord, I can't believe oh sweet Jesus, forgive me. I literally spent 3 years hating my debut novel. Like, it made me sick to look at it, and it's still hard to keep from cringing. I cringe about every 3 words. But just because from 12 to 18, I changed a lot, as you can imagine, and writing several more books. I learned so much more, and had I been able to apply that knowledge to my first book before I published it, bruh, we would have ended up, we would be in a totally different plane of existence right now. So that's why I say get as much experience as you can. Finish several books before you pursue publication with one, because you will learn things that you will want to apply to that book. And even if that means, you write 3 and the third one is the good one that you publish, or you write 3 and they're kind of stinky, but you know what to do now. So you go back to number 1 and it's like you rewrite it and it's perfect. Whatever way works, as long as you get that know-how and that experience, and you actually finish something, you see something through to completion before you publish something. Because I see a lot of people, especially self-published, but also some traditional published, they kind of haul off and publish, the first book they finish. Maybe it actually turned out good because they've been writing, little bits of novels for 60 years. But because they've only ever seen this one project through to completion, they don't ever write or publish another book, and they disappear into obscurity. Life gets in the way. They don't know how to balance writing with life, and it's just a mess. And it's kind of like, well, that's sad. Your series is unfinished, kind of a thing. So it's really beneficial in a lot of different ways. But that was way too long for at one point. But yeah, and even when you do finish the book, that like this is the book, this is my magnum opus, this is the one. Finish it, edit it some, maybe even get some feedback, and then wait a year. I say a year, that's kind of the long stretch. Some people can go 3 months and then look back at their book and be like, we can work on this, we can make it better. For me, I kind of have to go a year. Like, I get I fall very much in love with my books, and it takes a long time and a lot more writing before I really can come back and be like, this is what I did wrong. This is how we fix it. Let's make it better. But yeah, I always say to wait 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, however long you can feasibly wait, and then come back to it, and you will be so much better for it. All right, so step 2 is to get outside feedback. Personally, I like beta readers or alpha readers. I try and do a mix of both. They really are. I like getting a mix of readers and writers, which most writers are readers, but I like getting people who just read because they can offer you that reader perspective. You know, like, oh my gosh, I love this character. You know, they can kind of pump you up. Yeah, this is good. I like that. Yeah, I can actually finish this. You motivated me. Thank you. But then they can also like offer you some things that maybe a writer wouldn't catch because the writer is too focused on the technical stuff. Then on the same hand, having those writers to be focused on the technical stuff can offer you feedback that a reader wouldn't. The reader may be like, well, there was something about it that was off. But a writer can tell you the pacing was too fast, and so the ending felt rushed. You know what I mean? Because they know. So get a mix of both. Like having that feedback, which is free, thank the Lord, is so invaluable, so important. And then also get it professionally edited, especially if you're going with self-publishing. Obviously, if you're going traditional publishing, they will have editors. So don't, throw money away on an editor when you're about to get one anyway. But if you are trying to really impress your agent and your novel is kind of looking sad, you might want to cough up some dough for an editor just to enhance your chances of being picked. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But especially if you're going self-publishing, please, I beg of you, get an editor. As somebody who did not and somebody who is now an editor, get an editor. I beg of you. I beg of you. Just because I know what it's like to publish a book that has not been professionally edited, and it makes you want to crawl in a hole and never come out of it.
Yeah.
And then I also have seen a lot of books that needed the editor. Either they've already been published and I'm reading them and I'm like, this is a no, Cheryl. No, you shouldn't have done this. Or, I'm getting the book and I'm actually, have been hired to edit it. And I'm just like, thank you for coming to me. Yay. You can actually, your book will be produced correctly because you hired an editor. But you can kind of tell you made the right decision. Good for you. But yeah, it is so important. It is just so important. I could probably go on forever about how important it is, but we won't do that. All right, number 3. And these are this is just like chronological order. This isn't necessarily the order of importance.
That's perfect.
All of these are so important. But number 3 is to do your research, please. Please. As somebody who did not, I'm serious. I feel like this episode is how not to publish your book. Do not do what I did.
That's a good title. I'll probably add it.
Like, do not do what I did, or you will regret it. And in the fleshly area, yes, I totally regret it. But looking at things from a spiritual perspective and being like, the Lord's taught me a lot of things, and He had this happen for a reason. I'm grateful. But I don't want you to be full of regret. So make sure you do your research. It is really, really easy just to Google things. Tap it in on your little phone. Google will tell you, honey. It will let you know. So many people who have done amazing writing and publishing have written articles. They've written blog posts. They've written other books. Gosh, you could even go on Instagram and find information that is going to benefit you so much.
You can go to your local library. I found like a whole area. I did not know. I randomly kind of came across it. I think it was God though. I came across that area and I'm like, there's a whole bunch of books on writing, like a whole portion of the bookshelf on writing. I was like, what? Where has it been all this time? It's like for free. I'm saying, like, even if you do not have a phone, I bet you there's a local library. Like, even if you're on phone rest or anything like that, you can still do research. There's so many ways, so much out there right now for doing research, for learning how to publish, learning how to YouTube, whatever, anything.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's awesome though. Man, you must have a bigger library than we do out here in Podunkville. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, even listening to this podcast episode or asking a friend who writes or anything, just watching, observing, studying what other people have done can really teach you a lot. But yeah, at least make sure you have the fundamental knowledge. Like, you have to have an agent to be traditionally published. That's something you should know before you go to get traditionally published. Because if you don't know, you're in for a really rude awakening when it's like, we don't accept books. How do you? Because you don't have an agent, Grace. That's why. They don't accept them from you, babe. They accept it from an agent. Anyway, I will forever, like, facepalm over that fact. But yeah, like, just get the fundamentals. Obviously, there's going to be stuff that contradicts itself. You know, you'll read this in one book. Oh, I should do this. And the other book will say, that's a horrible idea. Don't do that. So, you know, when you get too deep into it, it can get overwhelming. But at least get the fundamental knowledge down, and then you can move forward. Don't move forward having nothing, you know? And obviously, some things are going to be trial and error. I can tell you what to do exactly, and you will still have some trial and error involved. You'll still make mistakes, and you'll still have to learn from them. And that is a good thing. Obviously, don't make mistakes that are going to haunt you for the rest of your life. But don't be afraid to make the more minor mistakes that will help you learn and grow, you know? But yeah, at least research what you can, especially when it comes to publishing and marketing.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a bachelor's degree, but genuinely, like, one book from the library, a couple of articles online, ask one friend some questions, and that will enhance your knowledge and your capabilities tenfold.
Yeah, totally.
All right, the final step. We are nearing the end. We're on the home stretch, people. Number 4, prepare yourself. I've talked so much about all of the ways you prepare your novel through feedback and waiting and polishing it. And then, you know, the way that you prepare yourself for publishing, you know, technically speaking, by doing research. But there's another element involved because we are human people and we have a soul, and that's feelings. You are going to feel things. You're going to feel pain and heartache. So be prepared that when you are published, everybody, not everybody on the planet, but like everybody in the sense of all sorts of different people are going to read your book.
They'll have access to it.
Yes. Some people will love it. They will fall at your feet and praise you. You have published the great American novel, Mary. God bless you. And some people will cuss you out because they didn't like it. So yeah, be prepared for negative feedback. Be prepared for people pointing out things that you missed and you're like, I can't believe I didn't notice that typo. It's okay. Everybody has a typo. But there are some things that you can genuinely learn from. And there are some things that are just people are expressing their personal opinions, and that is okay. I see so many people getting their feelings tremendously hurt over like negative reviews or negative feedback, and they're like, I'm never going to write again. Or on the flip side, I'm better than everybody else, and this person, how dare they say that to me? They may have been right. You need to get off the high horse, Betty Mae, and pay attention because they try to tell you something to help educate you. But yeah, just be prepared that you're going to experience that. Don't be prideful about it, but also don't like get this whole, I don't know if you call it false humility or just low self-esteem or what. Don't get down in the dumps about it because it happens to everybody. Pulitzer Prize winning novels get bad reviews. You know, they made it a movie and half of the reviews are negative. That's just life because everybody's different. But at the same time, there are things that you can learn from. And you can learn how to cater to your audience more and market better. Maybe it's like, okay, this non-Christian got a hold of my Christian novel and didn't like it because it was Christian. Maybe I need to make sure people know it's a Christian book before going into it so I don't get a 1-star review because this person thought it was just a romance. You know what I mean? Or maybe, you know, a bunch of people who don't like fantasy got a hold of the book. Maybe I need to do better at making sure I'm reaching the people who like fantasy instead of all these people that read literary fiction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a lot of those personal preferences, don't take them to heart and change what you're doing. Just find the right people, because the right people are out there. But yeah, be prepared for the obstacles, the mistakes, and the negativity, because it's there. That's it.
Totally. Absolutely. Definitely. Wow. Okay, that was great. Thank you so much. And that was like so simply broken down. But yeah, it can often feel like you're just lost in a maze when it comes to self-publishing. But if you do apply some of those basic things, I feel like that can help you with, like, even though the process, you can probably find like the whole process. Okay, first you like write your draft, then you edit it, and then you get your eyes at the end or something like that. Just getting all the order down. But those basic things sometimes will do a lot more help than just the technicalities, because the technicalities are there. But getting yourself emotionally ready, spiritually ready, um, getting your draft ready, that can sometimes be the hardest part, especially when, as an indie writer, you're pretty much the gatekeeper. There are no gatekeepers per se. So it's up to you to have that high standard for your book, for your work, for your marketing, for whatever you're doing. It goes as far as you want to go. And so it truly is so true that it's up to you and God and the book. It's really, that's what you're working with at that point. So thank you
Yes.
for sharing that.
Grace's advice has honestly been so good. I always love listening to people's stories and the things that they wish that they could tell themselves like years ago. It's always so intriguing and so encouraging to know that someone is willing to share this incredible knowledge and incredible wisdom of things they wish somebody could have told them. I'm honestly so grateful for friends like Grace. And if you want to connect with her and ask her more questions, you can absolutely do that by DMing her on Instagram. However, we will continue this same conversation in our next episode, because I like to divvy these up into 2 parts so that you can kind of take your time with each, where we're going to be covering how to grow your audience, how to self-publish your book, the cost of it. We're going to get real and raw in these episodes, and I can't wait for you to be able to listen to these. So until then, friends, continue to live, give, and repeat, and I will see you next time.